Welcome to Crawlspace. I'm Tim here today with Lance in a hotel room in parts unknown. How are you, Lance?
You are not kidding. There's nothing seedy going on. This is a hotel room, not a motel room. We're doing some casework, and it's going pretty well. Feeling good. How are you?
I'm great. And yes, we're on location, a secret location. But we will say it's not Massachusetts.
It's not Massachusetts.
It's also not New Hampshire.
It's not New Hampshire, but it's a double letter, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And you guys do the math.
All right. And so for this interview, Lance, today we have the women, the doctors from Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey, Meghan Sachs and Amy Shlosberg, and they talk about the case of Melanie McGuire. And, of course, these two, they do a podcast called Direct Appeal, which is all about Melanie McGuire, who is a convicted killer. She was convicted of murdering her husband, Lance.
She is also known as, you might remember, the Suitcase Murders. So his body was dismembered, sawed up with a reciprocating saw, and put into suitcases and found. And she was the prime suspect, and she's doing life in prison right now. And it's a really, really crazy case, especially listening to Amy and Meghan talk about it, because they have their opinions. They have their professional opinions. They also have their personal opinions, and they approach this with their doctor's hat on, but they're totally real about it. They don't speak a lot of clinical talk. They're really sort of conflicted about the whole thing. It is really sort of a spider web of a case. I don't know what to make of it this early on in talking to the experts.
I know. My opinion changed during the interview a couple of times, and we kind of keep track of that as it goes. It is a fun interview with these two wonderful people, and the case is gruesome. But it's interesting, and so they've actually interviewed Melanie in prison. And she is sort of giving them a shot to do whatever they can, try to shake something loose. She said apparently that the system hasn't worked for her, so she might as well try something different, and that happened to be this podcast called Direct Appeal.
Against her lawyer's advice.
Right.
And yeah, if it hasn't worked for her so far, why not try something like this? So they were lucky enough to get that, and they were professional enough to maintain that relationship, which is awesome. And I don't know what to make of this. Even as we're sitting here talking about it in the open, there's some things about this case that stand out, like, oh wow, she definitely did this, because who else would have done this? And then there's other things that you're just like, well, how did somebody commit murder so effectively who's never committed murder before with kids around, and just the way his body was dismembered? Like, how did that even happen with nothing to go on when you're searching the house or any of her belongings? It's really crazy.
Yeah, it is a really bizarre case. So definitely check out the podcast Direct Appeal, and come to the American Crime Festival in Wildwood, New Jersey, November 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2019, because Amy and Meghan are going to be there. They're going to be doing a panel, or actually more of a presentation on this case and about their podcast. And I think it's going to be great, Lance.
Yeah, they're going to bring something different to the table when it comes to just simply talking about a case. They're really engaging, and they really work well with the audience. So if you want to ask some questions, they'll have a Q&A, but they're open to questions after their presentation or before their presentation. They really want to get this case out there, get Melanie's story out there, whether or not she's guilty. If she is guilty, then you're talking about someone who murdered their husband. If she's not, then you have to advocate for somebody who's been wrongfully in prison, and that's sort of the rub. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah, so come to the American Crime Festival, check it out. There's going to be a lot of amazing panels, and the schedule is going to be posted this week. I think it should be posted by the time you are listening to this. So go to toggle on over to AmericanCrimeFest.com. Check out the schedule. You will be blown away by the panels and presentations that we have, and you just got to buy a ticket and come see us in Wildwood, New Jersey.
Yeah, big announcement, the schedule. You'll see what's going on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday, and you'll see that you get your catered breakfast, you get your catered lunch, and you get to see all sorts of professionals in this field.
And us.
And we'll be floating around, probably drunk.
Okay, so check out Direct Appeal. Make sure to go to AmericanCrimeFest.com and don't forget to come see us in Brooklyn on October 5th. It's coming up real soon. We're doing a show with True Crime Obsessed and Maggie Freeling. If you're a fan or if you've watched the Oxygen documentary, The Disappearance of Maura Murray, or our docuseries with James Renner, Finding Maura Murray, you are going to want to be at that show. Trust me on that.
Because if you've ever seen one of their live shows, one of Patrick and Jillian's live shows, what they do is they take the current true crime fad, whether it's a Netflix series or something, and then they sort of roast it. They give their take on it, their comedic take on it, and that's what they're going to do with the Oxygen series, and that's what they're going to do with our documentary. So all we can do right now is really steel ourselves. I've been doing that for the better part of 3 weeks, just getting myself prepped for this mentally and physically. And we're going on like less than 2 weeks to go, and it's going to be a wild ride, and I do not mean that metaphorically.
It is going to be a lot of fun. So check that out. There are links in the show notes for all of this stuff. So thank you very much for listening, and we really hope you enjoy this interview with Amy and Meghan. Welcome to Crawlspace, Doctors Meghan Sachs and Amy Shlosberg. What is going on?
Hey guys.
I had no idea that you were doctors. I have to leave the room.
We're very, very impressed by your titles.
Oh, thank you. My friends' kids aren't. Like one time they were like, well, what are you a doctor of? And I'm like, like social science. And they're like, do you have a stethoscope? I'm like, no, not that kind of doctor.
Yeah.
Well, we could send you a Crawlspace stethoscope if you want.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll just steal one from the next doctor's visit one of us has, and we'll slap a Crawlspace sticker on it.
Which will be
and,
in like 20 years.
Mail it to you. Yep. Actually, we don't have to mail. We can just hand deliver it to you at the American Crime Festival in Wildwood, New Jersey this November 9th and 10th, 2019. You are all going to be there, and you're going to be doing a presentation on Melanie's case, Melanie McGuire.
Yes, we are so excited. Yes. Thank you for the invite.
Yes.
Well, thank you for agreeing to take part in it and spread the word about Melanie's case, which is your primary focus of your podcast. I want to go back real quick and just say that you both are doctors. Meghan, you earned your PhD at John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Oh, pardon us.
Pardon us.
Yeah.
As did Amy. Earned a PhD at the same college.
Oh, pardon us.
Were you guys in the same class? And while you were earning these PhDs, were you like, we're going to take this to the podcasting universe?
No, we were in different cohorts. Meghan was before me, right?
I was 2 years ahead of Amy, but we knew each other. We just weren't in the same group, but we used to see each other in like the lounge,
Yes.
you know,
the lounge,
the commuter lounge and the computer space, you know, so we knew each other, but you know, we weren't BFF.
No, we reconnected like what? 5 years.
It was when Amy applied. She applied to work at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and it was so funny because it was my second year here, and I was like, I'm gonna hire someone that's just totally different than me, like, you know, complete opposite in every way. And I wound up hiring someone who we're pretty similar.
It's like a carbon copy of you. You both work at the same university, the Fairleigh Dickinson University, and you both are experts in the same field: serial killers, psychology, all that.
No, we have different. So the difference is, I got my master's in forensic psych. Meghan got her master's in criminal justice. So there's a little bit of a difference. We're sitting so close.
But
we do research in different areas. I teach wrongful convictions. I teach offender reentry, race and crime. I do not teach serial killers like Meghan.
Yeah, I focus on serial killers, probation and parole, and I really like women in crime, as you might have guessed already. That's become one of my main focus areas.
Well, that's some noble stuff that you have going on there. The reentry is a difficult topic, I can imagine.
Yes, I love teaching reentry, and I also work with a lot of people on the outside when they come home from prison, and it's such rewarding work. It's wonderful.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So not the kind of work where you're stressed out. You're just you're happy to help.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not stressed out.
Sounds like a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All is good here. No, it's great.
I think it's really cool to work with offenders when they're reentering. I think it's we have a number of them who will come and speak to our classes. They have written for my books. They are willing to do a lot to give back, and seeing where they began and where they end up, it's really quite amazing for us and for students, especially who are going into the field.
Absolutely.
So what do you talk to them about? What do you help guide them with?
Well, I wouldn't say we guide them. I don't think I guide them as much. Maybe Amy a little bit more
academically, because
Yeah.
I teach in prison. So a lot of my students who are students on the inside, when they come home, I'll help them maybe figure out like grad school or work stuff. But it's definitely, when they come to talk to our classes here, it's more just, where they came from, how they got involved in the criminal justice system, and then, what life has been like since for them. We also take our students with us into prison to talk to some of the inmates. So it's nice for the students to talk to people inside, but then also be able to talk to people that are coming home.
Yeah. So what's that like for them going into prisons and everything?
It's kind of interesting. They act. It's very different when they walk in versus when they walk out.
Yeah.
When they initially walk in, you can tell there's like kind of nerves and excitement, but also a little bit of tension. And when they walk into a room with the lifers who are convicted of murder, you can tell that they're nervous and they sit down and they're quiet. And by the end of the hour, once we've done like a Q&A session, they're like so relaxed. They're talking to them. They realize like, okay, we're in a room with people. It's cool. It's all good.
Yeah.
So it's a very, it's pretty eye-opening, I hate to say, but it is for them.
Yep.
Yeah, I can imagine that that's what you want, though, right? That you want some sort of lasting effect there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can teach them all we want, but
Right.
that experience for them, there's nothing that I can teach them that'll take the place of that.
Yeah, and it's also nice just for them to see that, people aren't always what they seem, right? You're not
Yep.
what you are on paper. And, like Meghan said, you see someone who's sitting up there and they're all tatted up and they're 6'3", big guy, and you walk in and you're nervous to talk to them. And then next thing you know, you guys are talking about like puppies and flowers, and you're like, oh, you can connect with them on a different level. I don't know. I love it. We don't really talk about puppies or flowers, but
That was my next question. How often are you talking about?
You have
that's
a
good
PhD?
topic. Yeah. Well, PhD stands for puppies, hydrangeas,
yep.
daffodils,
And
right?
daffodils.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, really, what does PhD stand for?
it is a doctor of philosophy.
Oh, but it's not. That's okay.
So PH stands for the philosophy, I guess. And then D is doctorate. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I knew the doctorate part.
Okay.
I like puppies, hydrangeas, and daffodils.
Or it could be in Dalmatians.
Or Dalmatians, yep.
Right.
Yep. But,
Okay. So you two are doing a podcast called Direct Appeal, and it is excellent. So congratulations on that and producing it and getting it out there. It's really wonderful to listen to. And
Thank you.
And you cover the case of Melanie McGuire, who is an incarcerated prisoner, and you guys are trying to find out if she is actually guilty, is actually the killer that she was convicted to be.
That's correct. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's kind of her, it's a play on a direct appeal in the courts, but it's her direct appeal to the public and to us to look into the case. The goal ultimately is to get as close to the truth as we possibly can, which is, figuring out innocence or guilt.
Now, do you think that the media had anything to do with her incarceration? Because since 2007, when she was sentenced, it was dubbed the Suitcase Murders. And when you put some sort of tag like that on any crime, or even a criminal like a serial killer like Son of Sam, who we just talked about, it takes it to another level that doesn't feel real. So the suitcase killer, and then you find out it's a woman, like that is a really juicy headline to grab onto. What kind of effect did that have?
Well, you also had to take into account that she was an attractive woman and she
Yep.
was cheating on her husband. So the media had a field day with this,
Yep.
So I think that was definitely an issue in the trial because they did not change venues. They they did not even put a motion in, if I remember correctly.
No change of venue. And it was on Court TV.
It was that's not the kind of area where these things happen.
People are blogging about it all the time. Yeah. There's, lots being said about her and her appearance, those cold eyes.
It was a media circus, that case. So I definitely think the suitcase killer definitely had part of it, but I think just the fact that they vilified her the way they did, right?
Yeah, it happens with women in particular too, and women commit crimes that are kind of cross our gender expectations and gender norms. And when they, along with that, also have an affair, because that's kind of a gender issue. When women do it, they kind of become the bad, a bad woman, so to speak. So I think she became vilified because of those issues.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. When you look back at the crimes of Tonya Harding, she was, she's this woman who attacked or hired somebody to attack Nancy Kerrigan, and Joey Buttafuoco, the Amy Fisher story.
Just so you know, Joey Buttafuoco lived in my hometown.
Oh, no kidding.
Did you ever see him around?
Part of my tour when I take people around, and that's the Buttafuoco. It was.
But yeah, so there's kind of to my point there. Like now it's almost a celebrity status. You point out the home where this crime happened, and even who was the teacher in New Hampshire?
Pamela Smart.
Yeah, you talk about Pamela Smart. That movie To Die For with Nicole Kidman, that was based on that.
Yep.
Plus, I guess a couple of other TV movies and stuff. But it is interesting to look at how many men commit crimes that just go under the radar, and then a woman creates a crime, or a woman
maybe commits a crime.
Maybe commits a crime. Right, a crime. Yeah, let me take that back. A woman is involved in a crime, in a murder.
Maybe is involved in a crime, in a murder.
A woman is associated with a murder, and then all of a sudden the media grabs onto that and makes it into a celebrity thing. What's the rules with that? Why can you allow the media to go in on one case and not in on another case? And how did it make it on Court TV?
Oh, I mean, I think it had all the elements to make it to Court TV, like we had said. Like, she's an attractive woman. She's not your typical suspect. She's a nurse. She's having an affair with her boss. She's got this kind of famed lawyer. I mean, it had all the ingredients for TV. It's really whether or not a case makes it to television is usually it's an issue for judicial discretion. It's usually up to the presiding judge to determine what kind of media they will allow, if any. So it's really, case by case.
The judge was just like, free for all, open the doors.
Yeah. Some judges feel that way. I mean, some will say, let's air it all. Let's have everything be transparent. Others will, some won't like that media presence because it's too much and it can interfere with the case.
But in this case, it seemed like it already had the perfect cocktail for this media explosion. And so there was kind of no stopping it by the time it got to trial, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was, it's a famed case. Mm-hmm. It may not be have national fame in the way that, say, Casey Anthony's case does, but certainly in our parts.
No, it was pretty It was a national case.
Well, it was, but people don't remember. Yeah, it was famous here and it was famous then. So, yeah.
Where did it happen?
So we're in New Jersey. So, but well, here's the thing. So it's debatable where it happened. So, Melanie and Bill were from Woodbridge, New Jersey, and the prosecution's theory was that he was killed in New Jersey, but that his body was transported to Virginia.
Okay, and so his body was found in Virginia in Chesapeake Bay?
Correct. Mm-hmm. So where it happened, I mean, they're from New Jersey, so they'll say the crime originated here.
And New Jersey ended up getting jurisdiction over the case?
Yeah.
Virginia Beach gave it to New Jersey. So,
because, you take it.
Body was found in Virginia Beach, but New Jersey ended up taking the case because that's where he resided.
Now, Virginia took the case initially, but I got the distinct impression that they didn't want it, to be honest.
Well, it feels like something that they didn't ask for, so they were like, we don't want this. How was his body transported to Virginia?
It depends who you ask. According to the prosecution, Melanie drove it to Virginia in suitcases. In 3 separate suitcases. Is that really what happened? Who the hell knows? I don't know. I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think that's plausible.
I don't think that's how it happened, but...
So his body was found in suitcases. Now, tell me how rare that is for a woman to dismember a man and put him in suitcases like that.
the rarest. It doesn't happen. There are bodies. It's true that men have done it to get rid of women or other people, and it's done as a method of disposal. It's not done because people say like it's malicious and whatnot. It's very upsetting, and of course it's devastating to the victim's family, but it's not done for that purpose. It's done for disposal purposes, and for a woman to do it, I've almost never. Yeah, I can't think of another case.
Well, not to mention the physical strength it would have taken to not only dismember the body in the manner it was dismembered, but also get rid of the body. The suitcases, the heaviest suitcase was 80 pounds.
No, the heaviest suitcase was actually 95 pounds.
Heaviest suitcase was 95 pounds.
Wow. Do you know where the suitcases were dumped into the water?
That's a really interesting point. So they had an oceanographer who had testified about the currents because the prosecutor said that she kind of threw them from the bridge, on top of the bridge. I don't think they could clearly establish that it was from the top of the bridge, to be honest. And my guess is, well, I'll reveal my final theories in our last episode, but my guess is that it was not. I don't think the suitcases were tossed off the bridge.
Okay.
I believe they were not tossed off the bridge. I'll just say that for now.
They were dropped off the bridge.
Sorry, if they were tossed off the bridge, it's also shocking that no one would see it, because it was, even if it happened in the middle of the night, like the prosecutor contends, it's still a very busy bridge.
It's a big bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. How was Bill murdered?
Well,
Bill was shot. So he was shot a few times. He had a bullet wound to the head. He had bullet wounds 2 or 3 to the abdomen and the chest area. So he was initially shot and then he was dismembered after.
Now,
and let you say 2 or 3 though, because there's varying reports say different things.
Yeah. So the reason why is because it looks like there are 4 bullet holes or wounds, but only 2 bullets were recovered. And so there was testimony that there was possibly like a bounce back effect, but they couldn't locate the other bullets. So there are definitely 4 wounds, but I don't know how many bullets.
I imagine that part of the investigation involved taking those bullets and trying to match them to a gun that Melanie owned, or maybe Bill owned, or was in the household, and that maybe they went into the house and looked for bullet holes in the walls or something to match them to the holes that did not contain bullets in his body. Was that part of the investigation?
Well, they found nothing in that apartment, nothing, besides the fact that they didn't find bullet fragments or bullet holes. They also found 0 forensic evidence. So if the body's dismembered somewhere, I don't care how good you're cleaning up.
Wasn't there.
That's a whole other issue. But yes, they did have a gun. According to Melanie, she bought a gun a couple of days before Bill was killed. She admits she bought the gun. She claims she bought it for Bill. The gun was never found. They did find the case.
Sorry to interrupt.
Like a gift?
Yeah, like for him to give to him, or for him to use.
Well, he had a felony record, so he could not purchase a gun himself legally. So according to Melanie, and he did have the felony record, that's confirmed, but according to Melanie, Bill had asked her to purchase the gun for him, and she claims she did, and she claims that he must have taken it with him when he stormed out on her the night of this big fight that they had. And there's also some debate as to whether or not the bullets even match that gun, and how relevant is that anyway? I'm not sure, because during the trial they claimed that the bullets matched the gun. However, you want to talk a little bit about the gun expert?
Yeah, the experts went back and forth on it and said that afterwards, though, this was after the fact, they said she has experts, and we consulted an independent expert who says that the rifling characteristics on her gun don't actually match the gun that was used to kill Bill. And they could tell that from the bullets, the lands and grooves. So this has become an issue now, whether or not it could even have been the gun.
Oh, what does that mean, rifling characteristics?
So it's lands and grooves are like the characteristics, like they bore into the bullet when a bullet is fired. So on some guns, there are there are different numbers of lands and grooves. So on hers, it was typical of her model weapon that she had. It was typical for there to be 5 lands and grooves bore into the gun, into the barrel of it, and so you can tell that when the bullet comes out. But on the bullets that they found in Bill's body, there were 6. Which is different.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like the fingerprint of the bullet or gun.
Wow, that was well said. Yes,
Yeah.
there you go. Thanks. I guess I could have just said that. Thanks so much.
Tim's got a PhD now.
Yep.
Honorary PhD. So what kind of weapon was this?
Taurus. Yeah, Taurus, a 38.
Okay, so it was like a revolver or an automatic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Did Melanie's boyfriend / boss own a gun?
No.
They were able to check him out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He also ended up, testifying for the prosecution. He wore a wire. And my favorite part of the story, anyway, he wore a wire and he clearly had nothing to do with it. They were able to quickly rule him out.
I would say that 100%. I think he had nothing to do with it. 100%.
Okay, we'll get back to your favorite part of the story because that's interesting.
No, I don't want to.
Okay. Did they do any ballistic tests on her, like any gunpowder residue on her hand or anything, or was it too late?
No, because it was too late.
Okay.
Bill, his body was found a couple of weeks after. So
And she wasn't even a suspect right away. By the time they started looking in on her, there wasn't even really surveillance videos left in a lot of places where she claimed she was. So that was one of the big issues, is they didn't start investigating Melanie for so long. How long was it, Megan?
that they started investigating her.
Yeah, after
I mean, I don't
missing.
know when they actually began, but I mean, it was
Informally,
definitely
they probably began.
definitely a couple of months had passed.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that kind of worked against her potentially, that they didn't
If she's
investigate her right
innocent.
away. Yeah, if she's innocent.
Depends.
I was going to say, it depends which way you look
Yeah.
at it. I mean, I've asked her things like that, like what worked for you, what worked against you, and then the answer she'll always come back to is clearly nothing worked for me because
Right.
I'm in prison for life.
Yeah.
So
Right. Apologies for getting into the minutia on this, but who owned the suitcases? Were they proven to?
Melanie.
Okay, they were proven to be Melanie's. Okay.
So
They were theirs.
moving. Yeah, so
They
they
were
were
family.
moving. They closed on a house that night that he went, apparently the night that he left. So they apparently were packing up and they were moving stuff. So if he had suitcases in his car, it seemed like that could have been, I don't know, it could have been reasonable to believe that he had suitcases packed up in his car. At first, she said she didn't know if the suitcases were theirs, and she said, "Oh, they're probably they were probably ours." It was like 3 pieces that belonged to a set.
it was a Kenneth Cole. It was kind of a nondescript, though. It was either dark green or black. And she, at first, when it was asked, she was shown a picture, and she said, "I don't know, that could be ours." She said that she went home and looked for this is what she said. She went home and looked for the suitcases and realized that theirs were gone. And she said she called and told them, yes, I think those were our suitcases.
Okay. And what was he convicted for by having a felony record?
So Bill had a lot of driving violations, like more speeding tickets than, something like upwards of 30 tickets. And he was driving one night. It's not like a long convoluted story, but essentially he was driving, he got pulled over, he was going to lose his license. It was going to be like a big to-do this time. And so he had asked her to lie for him and say it wasn't him driving. I'm not really sure that the story is a little different depending on who tells it, but essentially they were going to lie and say someone else was driving the car. And what happened was, at the time, his roommates got wind of it, and they called the cops to tell the cops what was going on, I think because they were concerned about Melanie getting in trouble because she had agreed to lie for him in some way. And so they both got a conviction. Melanie got misdemeanor, and he got a felony. And I don't know if it was perjury or obstructing justice. I can't recall.
Oh.
He also had a record of forging.
He had a misdemeanor arrest as well for forgery.
Okay.
Now, Bill, the way he was kind of described in the podcast, he sort of had a temper and was kind of a volatile guy. Is that true?
I don't know. I would say they had a volatile relationship, but I don't know. I would think it'd be really unfair to call him volatile without knowing him and without the friends that we contacted having spoken to us. I think that I did read some reports that he could be, even I think his friend had said it in a police report. His friend John said he had an knack for kind of pissing people off. But I don't know that I would call him volatile. I would stop short of saying he was volatile.
Okay. And how do we know what was the method of dismembering him? Was he sawed up with like a hacksaw?
Yeah, I have a question about that too. I'm curious where the prosecution said that happened, the dismemberment
That's the
happened.
problem. They say it was a reciprocating saw and that she did it in her home, which was attached on 3 sides.
It's not true.
And her 2 young children in the home. And they found 0 forensic evidence. They went back to that place several times. They took out piping. They looked everywhere. They found nothing.
They didn't find a reciprocating saw.
They never found a reciprocating saw. They never found any sort of bone fragments, tissue, blood, nothing.
Has anyone ever used a reciprocating saw, just in general?
I have not.
I have not.
Yeah, they're noisy.
I don't know what it is.
They're noisy.
Oh.
They you use it to like cut through like sheetrock. I mean,
it's
it's
like a
something-
sawzall.
Yeah, it's a sawzall.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
They are loud.
they're loud. And you need to plug them in, if I'm not
Yeah.
She lived in
mistaken.
a townhome.
So wait, the prosecution offered a theory during
Just so
closing.
stupid. Yeah.
They said she probably muffled it with a towel.
Which is
Well,
so
you
sad.
can't do that.
Yeah.
I feel very confident that you're right, but I also feel confident that I still can't believe anyone would have listened to that and gone, oh yeah, that makes sense.
And I know the children were young, but wouldn't you be afraid that your children would wake up and walk in on this grisly scene? I mean,
It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's hard to even imagine how grisly this would be. I mean, there must be blood everywhere, splashing everywhere.
yes, there would be.
Yeah, so it's...
And if you heard the surgeon testify, Dr. Barone, I think he made that pretty clear that this is grisly. This is not something you can clean up. Blood goes everywhere. You have to do this somewhere that you're not worried about blood going everywhere.
Not to
So
mention
the woods.
not to mention the fact that there were 4, at least from we know, 4 gunshots.
Mm-hmm.
So is that happening
Yes.
in the apartment as well, in the townhouse?
Well, she
yes.
could have had a silencer, in all fairness.
I don't think she had a silencer.
I don't think so, but I'm just saying that's more believable for me.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
That's absolutely unbelievable for me. She purchased the gun 2 days ahead of time. She didn't purchase the silencer, and it's absolutely unfathomable that she shot him in the apartment. And sorry, that just is.
Why did she buy him a gun in the first place? Was he just, were they having dinner and he was like, I could really use a gun?
That's a good question.
Well, he got his headlights stolen a bunch of times, and he got his headlights stolen how many times?
Out of his car?
Headlights of his Nissan Maxima were stolen 5 times.
Someone
And
went
so-
up to his car and took his headlights 5 times?
That apparently was actually a thing. I was able to verify at the time that like headlights were a valuable commodity and were getting stolen out of
Really?
these Nissan Maximas. Yeah.
That's incredible. I've never heard that.
Is that just
No,
coincidental?
He wanted it for protection. He claimed
Good question.
he worked in some rough parts of New Jersey. He worked in Newark for some of his jobs, and he claimed he wanted it for protection.
I love it. He's like still smiling over
I
that.
can't, like, after
So
this...
asked her, I'm like, who gets their headlights stolen? Is it possible? Because we got a lot of write-in about this too. Was it possible maybe he was stealing his headlights?
Well, why don't get an alarm for your car? Like after
Only
the third
once, shame on me.
Told me 5 times.
After the
I don't
third
know. So
time, you'd be
apparently
like-
he wanted a gun.
like give me a gun or put an alarm in your car.
Maybe he knew who was doing it, and it wasn't a random thing.
What a weird thing to do to somebody.
I mean, is it a coincidence though? 5 times?
Can't possibly
Like,
be.
That doesn't sound like
I
it.
think that's you know.
I love
without
how he's
saying-
harping on it, though.
I know.
Harped on the cab rides.
Yes. I think it's a lot to be coincidental, but nope. That's us just speculating.
I think you're right. I think speculating I think it'd be fair to say you're speculating if it was twice or 3 times. But 5 times is kind of obvious. Like
Yeah, I
there's
guess-
something else going on here.
Yeah, how
it
common.
was 5 times.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it was
So,
5 times.
like every Nissan Maxima driving down the street in that
Was at
area,
risk.
in those years, like was gonna get followed and their headlights stolen. Like that's really hard to believe.
So
Like
weird.
what it sounds like to me is that someone was trying to sort of disable the car. It's not cutting the brake line, but it is a safety hazard if you don't have your lights on.
Yeah, or at the very least, just like messing around with them. Like maybe he had an enemy and they just wanted to make his life
No.
inconvenient.
There was also something, I got some insider knowledge about this, that certain gangs would steal certain parts of, it was the igniter in certain headlights that could be used for homemade guns and stun guns.
Oh.
So there was a reason why they wanted this type of headlight.
Okay.
It wasn't a headlight, people were after, it was the igniter. But in order to get to the igniter, you had to take the headlight.
And you know what? If someone went in and took his headlights and the igniter once, and then they were like, well, this guy's not paying attention to his car, and then they went again, I'm sure they spread the word to their other friends, and they were like, you can literally go to that guy's car any time of the day and take his headlights and igniter because he doesn't give a shit.
I don't know.
I think it was just insurance fraud. I don't know why he would pick something like headlights, but because he wrote it off on his taxes.
Oh, he did? How
wow.
bizarre. That's just one of those details, huh?
I know. I love it when we talk to people like this and they have a case going on and then this one random detail pops up that just like sticks with you. You're like, that is so bizarre. And you end up talking about it for 15 minutes because I imagine a lot of people just like say, oh, okay, he got a gun. He was experiencing some vandalism with his car. But then when you really look into it, it's like, what? That doesn't make much sense.
There are so many things about this case that you would say that too. There are so many little things that you're like, wait, well, what? That makes no sense.
We harp on these things too. Amy harps more than I do, but we harp.
Harper.
You should start a podcast about it. Oh, wait.
Good idea.
So speaking of your podcast, Direct Appeal, you have interviewed Melanie, the Melanie McGuire, the woman who was convicted in this murder. What is that like, speaking with her?
So that is all me. So I met with her first before we did interviews a couple of times, and she's very engaging. She's very personable. She is a great speaker as well, so it's helpful. So I met with her and got the bones of her story before we ever recorded. And then I went out and, started doing other interviews, trying to confirm, disconfirm, trying to see what was what. And then we started interviewing. I also wanted to interview her a couple of times because I wanted to see if her story was consistent.
Sure.
So I was like, I made sure to ask things several times in different ways to see whether, every detail would conform or where would there be a breakdown. The interesting thing for me is that there was never a breakdown. She's been consistent, I'd say almost 100%.
She's had a lot of time to think about it and rehearse it.
Amy and I disagree on this point because while I do think that she has had a lot of time, it's almost inevitable that every person, especially who gets caught and interviewed, will change something. There will be a piece or a part of the story that varies in some way, even if you practice, because lies are very hard to such small lies are hard to remember, especially over a long period of time. So from 13 years ago to now, if you think her story is bogus, that's fine, but it's always been the same.
So you're saying that the lies will always at some point there will always be a conflict with the story if they're trying to remember little lies, and that's by accident. Is there any circumstance where somebody after 13 years will tell a different part just to stimulate conversation, just to bring the attention to the story, bring the attention back to the story?
I mean, I think I've seen that with serial killers, to be honest, where they'll give new details. So yeah, with some serial killers, people who are really seeking the attention as well for the crimes per se. But that's not been the case with Melanie. I don't think.
So that's not the case with her. Her story has stayed the same from the biggest details to the smallest details.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's stayed the same from beginning.
Now, so it sounds like you both can agree that it's a suspect conviction, but I don't know if you can both agree that it's a wrongful conviction at this point in the interview anyway.
I think we can both agree that she didn't get the fairest trial, that there were issues with the trial. I think we can both agree that if we were on that jury, we would not have been able to vote guilty just because there's clearly reasonable doubt, right? That burden is clearly met.
Yeah.
As far as guilt or innocence, I don't think we're going there quite yet, but we definitely disagree about the way some of the evidence looks. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like one of those cases that, like, from a juror's perspective, like, what is the alternative here? What the hell else could have happened besides Melanie doing it? Yeah,
that's the problem.
It's hard to imagine.
The defense did not give an alternate theory, although they said they would. In opening statements, the defense said, hold us to our word. We're going to, they were kind of implying that it was something with his gambling behavior because he had a bit of a history of gambling. But they never really explored that during trial. So the jury was left with, like you said, if not her, then who? So I think that was one of the biggest mistakes in the case, is that the defense never put forth an alternate suspect.
And they would have had to put forth an alternate suspect and an alternate scenario, which included either that person using his handgun and those bullets, or the exact type of gun and exact type of bullets. Right?
Also, the suitcases.
Yeah.
And
That
had to
hard,
have his
though.
suitcases.
It wasn't
That
the
wouldn't have been
exact
hard.
gun either.
Yeah.
They couldn't show it was the exact gun. It could have been a variety of revolvers.
Which was a 38 is common. So
not an uncommon weapon.
Right. Okay. And the bullets that came with it are not an uncommon bullet. It would be the same bullet that you.
Wad cutter bullets
Yeah.
are actually somewhat uncommon for what they were used for.
What they were used for, yes, but wad cutter bullets aren't uncommon in that people use them for target practice.
Okay. So she buys the gun and buys these wad cutter bullets. Did they ever find a box of bullets that were missing at least 4?
No.
No.
It's probably with the gun somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
the gun has never been found, right?
Never.
No gun, no bullets. She says that Bill took it with him when they had a fight and he left.
Okay, so it's another scenario could be that he left and went gambling, got into some altercation with somebody.
Had the suitcases in his car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe they got into a physical altercation and he was knocked out in some way, and then that person decided to finish him off or something with his own gun.
Yeah, people who own guns have a higher likelihood of being shot with their own gun. You know what I mean? Like it, yeah.
Doesn't
because
make
you
sense
have
at
to-
all.
It does though, because if you get in a fight and you pull a gun on someone, they can they can pull it right back on you. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like people die at the hands of their own weapons. You know, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely believe that. It's just as our friend Greg Overacker says, it's the law of large numbers. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're already opening the door to that.
So what time of night did he leave? Did that fight happen and did he take off?
She said it was around, well, actually, let's see. She said the fight started around 1 or 2 a.m. and that he left somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 a.m.
Okay, and he didn't tell her where he was going or anything like that?
She was locked in the bathroom apparently with her son at
She
the time.
said they got in a fight. Her woke up one of the sons who was too young to really recall anything. She grabbed him, she said, went to the bathroom, locked the door. She said that Bill stomped around for a while. She could hear him going through drawers, clearly packing some stuff, and still, she said, yelling a bit through the door. And then, maybe 15 or 20 minutes later, he left.
What was the fight about, and was there any drinking involved? Drug use?
There was drinking. It didn't sound like there was a tremendous amount. So apparently they closed on their house that day, and it was a house that Bill had wanted. And Melanie was, as she described, she wasn't excited about it, but she also wasn't upset about it, I guess. In her words, she said, fine, it was a house. We'd put our money there. We'd tie up our money. It would be fine. I didn't care either way. She was ambivalent. And so they were getting, I guess they shared a bottle of wine, a red bottle. I think he liked Opus one. And so they shared a bottle of Opus, and they fell asleep on the couch, according to Melanie. And when they woke up, she was still doing laundry packing. I mean, she said there were, things everywhere. And she said when she woke up, she said something to him to the effect of, well, you must be really happy you finally got your house. And she said it actually had the reverse effect where he got very angry with that and began yelling at her saying, I got this house because you wouldn't move to Virginia with me, which is actually where he wanted to move. He was not from, but had lived in Virginia Beach for a number of years. So I guess it started like that. We only had, we could have been living much better, much cheaper, but, you wouldn't leave New Jersey. And she said it started into a big fight that just carried upstairs into the laundry room where he hit her, she says, and shoved a dryer sheet in her mouth. And that's the fight.
Wait, why did he allegedly shove a dryer sheet in her mouth?
Well, she said that he didn't like, this is according to Melanie, she said he really didn't like dryer sheets. It was like a thing with him. It was a random thing. He didn't like dryer sheets. And she said that she was, I know. Well, actually, I don't like dryer sheets either, but that's fine. She said she was doing laundry, still doing the kids' laundry. And, I guess he saw her, a dryer sheet fall out of one of the kids' sleeves. And she said it set him off and he was incensed and he grabbed it and shoved it in her mouth.
Wow, I like dryer sheets.
I mean, they prevent static.
They smell nice.
Yeah.
I don't like them because I have sensitive skin. So I don't like the allergies. And I do understand. I don't like the way they feel either. So I'm kind of with Bill on this one.
So you've never eaten one.
You've never put it in someone's mouth.
Never eaten one or shoved it in someone's mouth. But
So
I use them in both.
Now, Melanie, just speaking with you for this podcast is sort of a big risk on her part, huh? She's waiting for an appeal?
Yeah, her lawyer advised her not to. She's still in the federal appellate system.
That's crazy to me.
And then she said, "No way, lawyer. I'm gonna speak to these two
Said,
ladies.
don't tell me what to do, suit."
Don't tell me what to do, suit. I know I got 100 years here.
She was done with her appeals in the state system, and she never even got close to getting any type of hearing. I think she's totally disgruntled with the appeal system and realizes that just trying to get the appeal, it's a it's a long shot. And maybe I think she thought that putting the information out there might help to, in her words, uncover some new evidence that she could actually use for an appeal.
Oh,
Sure.
Very cool. Okay. All right. I like it.
Yeah.
I take back my crazy comment.
No, yeah. I mean, if that's one of her, that's
That's her strategy.
strategies, then
Hey, we've seen it work with podcasts digging into cold cases and mysteries that have pulled
Listen,
up things.
Yeah.
I think if she's innocent, then, I understand why she would do this, right? If she's guilty, I understand why she would do this as well, because you have nothing to lose. So I understand why she would do this either way, personally.
But what do
Right?
you think? She's innocent or guilty?
just tell us now.
Nice try.
Ah, damn.
Try to slip that right in there. Like, we'll be like, oh. We will tell you and everyone else on our last episode.
Or at Crime Fest.
Or at Crime Fest.
American
yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
an American Crime Fest. We'll be happy to share.
Actually, I think our episode comes out around then.
It comes out around there. We'll be happy to share our opinions and how we came to them.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I love, we will also share on our panel our internal disagreements about some of these issues.
Oh,
Right.
Perfect. That's going to be great. Yeah, there's going to be some words, some fire,
Some fists thrown.
and right in her backyard too.
Yeah, I know, right?
In Jersey, right in the
I
Garden
know. This is, I think, because it's Jersey, because it's, Wildwood, which is also close to Atlantic City,
It
right?
is,
Atlantic
yes.
City was a big theme in our case,
Ah.
gambling. This is where his car was found. This is where I think I think we should get some real interest.
Yeah, you guys couldn't have picked a more perfect place for
Thank
our
you.
podcast.
State. More perfect unless you're driving a Nissan Maxima. Better take your headlights with you when you go into the convention center.
I'm glad I don't drive a Maxima. No one's going to want my Outback, my Subaru lights. So.
Well,
Yeah, you never know.
There could be a market by the time we get to November. I have a question about how his body was in the suitcases. Were the body parts in a bag, like a trash bag or a tarp?
A trash bag.
And did she own these trash bags?
Yes.
Well, that was a big debate at trial. So it depends on which expert you believe. There was one expert who testified for the state who said the bags were theirs, came from their house. And there was an expert on her side who said, she didn't say they weren't. What she said is it's absolutely impossible to make that determination with the tests that they ran. We got some emails from other people afterwards, in particular a forensic scientist who said that after listening to the testimony that Melanie's expert was accurate and that they could not have made the determination without running the test that her expert said they should have run. So,
But even if they did match the trash bags in her house, it doesn't matter. They were moving. They could have had trash bags in his car. So a lot of these issues to me don't really matter.
I agree. I don't think the plastic bag was a big, if you accept that the suitcases were in his car, you can accept that he had trash bags in his car. They were moving.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Do we know that his suitcases were in his car, or as he
don't
left?
know that.
We don't
We
know
don't.
that. Okay.
Okay, and how far in between time-wise were the three suitcases discovered?
So the fight that they had was the night of the 28th, April 28th into the morning of the 29th. And then the first suitcase was discovered, I believe, on May 5th or 6th. So about a week.
And then the second suitcase was discovered shortly thereafter?
Shortly after. So if the first was on the 5th, the second one was not even a week later. And then the third one was also about a week. So they were all found within a 2-week kind of frame.
And so Bill was missing during that initial week before one suitcase was found. So what was Melanie doing during that week?
Oh, she was doing a lot,
She was
actually.
very busy.
So she says that, immediately she took the kids to her parents. She went to court. She was going to file, or she did file a temporary restraining order. She said she was done. She got a divorce lawyer. She started apartment hunting. She changed bank accounts. She changed cell phones. She had a pretty busy week, and it was pretty well documented, her moves over the week.
So
She talked to everybody. She's on the phone constantly. She's doing everything, as she says, to move forward her divorce and her new life.
So one could assume that they had that fight, and that was one of many fights that set her off. And he left, and she was like, "I guess that's it. That's my opportunity to get out of here for good." And that's the story that she was putting forward. Is that
And if you believe that story, then all of her actions make sense.
Yeah.
Over that.
Because the alternative is that she kills her husband, disposes the body, cleans up everything to the point where there's absolutely no evidence at the townhouse, and then she still has the wherewithal to dispose of the reciprocating saw, go about her business as if she's getting a divorce. And it doesn't, if you're going to commit an impulsive murder, because it doesn't sound like this was planned because they had just closed on a house, then you have formulated this plan in your head pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could do it.
Well, I wonder, why he was taken to Virginia. That sounds interesting that he was so insistent on living in Virginia. And
Exactly
Well,
where he was
One of
found.
our listeners wrote in and said, "I wonder if this was her saying, well, you wanted to be in Virginia, now you're in Virginia." If it was symbolic.
Yeah, that sounds a bit far-fetched, potentially.
Then you go
but-
back to like,
Thank you. I think that's far-fetched as well.
Yeah.
It's 7 hours away. So I'm,
But-
it's an
Okay.
impulsive murder, and you have
Yeah.
children.
Well, yeah, that's my question. When would she have had the time to drive down there back and forth with these suitcases with her?
After cleaning up the
he-
mess or before cleaning up the mess?
He left at 5 a.m. The kids were soon to be awake.
Well, she dropped the kids off. She did drop the kids off at her parents' house, and
Okay.
she was in Delaware shopping for furniture, apparently, right?
I think it was, I get the date wrong, but so I think it was May 3rd. She said she was furniture shopping in Delaware, and the prosecution says she was driving Bill's body to Chesapeake Bay.
The timeline's very tight, though. The prosecution's timeline.
Did she actually buy furniture?
That's a whole other issue. She did not buy furniture, nor did she go into any store.
Delaware doesn't have really good furniture anyway.
Delaware doesn't have much. So, do you think Melanie? Is she lying about all this stuff? What do you think? What's your instinct tell you?
That's clever.
That's a good question.
Yeah, you're trying to get the.
They couldn't resist the instinct part of it.
I think you can read, I think there are parts of her story that seem very hard to believe and others that are quite believable. I think you kind of can read into my answer somewhat. Again, consistency is important for me, even if it seems ridiculous. And by the way, some of the parts of her story that I thought were ridiculous and that Amy and I said we got people who wrote in and said, not ridiculous at all. If you weren't involved in a relationship like this, you have no idea the stuff
oh, sure.
It doesn't sound ridiculous to us. I thought the reaction would be completely the opposite, that people would be writing in no way would anyone do this. So it depends. It really depends on what you think. There are parts that I find very hard to believe, but there's only a few parts that I find hard to believe.
Are there any cell phone records of her calling her?
I feel a little differently. I don't know. Cell phone records, though, that's, no, there's not. The cell phone thing is tricky because
there's no tower records. There's cell phone records, so they can see the calls they made. They can't see where they made them from.
Well, that's frustrating because that would be very easy to look at and see his cell phone is pinging off of every tower down to Virginia.
She's been very public about her desire to have those records come out and make them public. She calls for it regularly.
Why can't this happen?
All right, I think she might be innocent. Was Bill having an affair?
So they were able to reveal that Bill had had some affairs. It did not seem that he was engaged in she was engaged in a long-term affair with one person. It seemed like he had, they brought out at trial at least 2 different brief flings or sexual encounters, but it did not seem like he had a significant other at the time.
Right. They checked out the husbands and, because an obvious question would be, okay, he was sleeping with the wrong woman. The husband got pissed, right? But
it's also possible that they didn't. That's 2 women that they found. I should also mention that Bill, through his work, had a number of devices. He had a number of phones, Blackberries, and they don't think that they located all the devices that he had. So there could be activity that was not found.
Interesting.
Could they tell? I'm just playing out scenarios in my head. Could they tell the distance from which he was shot?
It was close range.
Close. Right. I'm playing out these scenarios that maybe they got into this altercation and he stuffed the dryer sheet into her mouth and maybe she pushes him and he falls and hits his head and she accidentally kills him. So then she's like, I got to make this look like, and you're shaking your head, so I'm going to stop.
Well, because there would be trauma to the head. There would be like, blunt force trauma or something else. They couldn't find any trauma to the skull.
I guess.
Nice try, though.
I'm a detective. Were there any signs of drugging or something?
Yeah, so there was chloral hydrate, which could be a sedative, could also be used for other purposes as well.
Where would you find chloral hydrate?
So you'd have to get a prescription for chloral hydrate. Melanie was a nurse. Someone did write and fill a prescription for chloral hydrate. However, it's not clear if it was Melanie or Bill who possibly forged the prescription for chloral hydrate. Chloral hydrate could have been used to sedate him before he was even shot.
Wow.
It wasn't found.
I know, there's a lot of layers here.
So it was found in his car, the chloral hydrate, but it was not found in his system. But in fairness, he lost a lot of blood. They weren't able to test for it in the system. Let's just say that.
So why would you take chloral hydrate?
It's a sedative. You would take it similar. I don't know why someone would choose that, but it's similar to, or in the same family, I would say, as like a Xanax or.
I thought it was more to help you sleep. Some people that are on steroids take it.
I'm sorry, it's a sedative. So
yeah,
it's a pill.
You could take it to sleep if you have insomnia.
Is a pill or a liquid? Yeah, it's a pill.
It's a liquid.
It's a liquid.
Right. When you said it, I pictured the movies where they put it on a rag and they put it against someone's face.
Or slip it in someone's drink.
Or slip it in someone's glass of wine.
In their cup of red wine.
Yes. Well, if he had this prescription and it was found in his car, it's plausible to think that maybe he left and he was heated and he was he took a couple of hits of the chloral hydrate just to
chill.
Just to chill out. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's
yeah,
possible.
there's so many hypotheticals here. It's a really interesting thought experiment.
We're barely scratching the surface on it.
Yeah.
So many.
Was there any? So he had an affair, at least with a couple of women, or at least a fling. Was there any mention or any history of an affair with a guy?
No, that's a new one. No.
Bill, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
That's actually that's a nice new theory I hadn't thought of.
I never thought of that. And
well, that's all the time we have for today. No.
Well, thanks for listening to Crawlspace.
leave that one for you to roll around.
Yeah, not a theory, just a question. I'm curious because
I feel like Tim and Lance are going to come up with their own theories.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I love it. This is awesome.
Are you guys going to have a session on this? Your theories?
We're going to do our own. Yeah.
It's good. we're gonna muscle you right out of it.
We're going to do the intro to you guys and leave you with 5 minutes.
45-minute intro. And we're like, we got these two.
We got time for Q&A.
Yep. We got these two philosophers coming out.
Oh boy.
Well, that is an interesting question because there's a lot of crimes that happen when people are repressed.
Well, and I hear that happening too. It's like that is a thing that happens. I feel like married men end up in affairs with guys occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, look at Michael Peterson.
Right. I mean, there and the wife sometimes has no clue. I find you hear stories about that kind of often. So
it's an interesting thought.
Anything's possible in this case.
Yeah.
So he gets into a fight. He's all heated. He takes his medication, and he's kind of drowsy, sitting in his car. Someone comes up. They're about to steal his headlights. He gets out. And he's like, not for the 6th time.
Not today. Not today.
I'm sorry to make light of this, but I don't mean to, because I understand that there's a woman in prison for this, and she might
someone
not,
dead.
and someone dead. But I just keep getting hung up on that headlight thing, and I apologize.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But actually, that theory is not implausible, right?
No.
That
Right.
he has a gun and he gets in an altercation with someone, right? And it's just Melanie's bad luck that it all happened right after they had an argument.
Were there any construction sites nearby his car? Was anything under construction?
Well, it was in Atlantic City.
The whole thing's
this
under construction.
Yeah.
He wasn't definitely in Atlantic City.
I'm sorry, the car. You're
Yeah.
asking the car. The car was in Atlantic
Okay.
City, so yes. And there's lots of water there, too. Lots of water in New Jersey, by the way. So if he's killed in New Jersey...
Like, why go to West Virginia? Or why go to Virginia
If
Beach?
you're going to be dumping the suitcase in water.
There's plenty of places to dump it.
Like, if you don't think it's going to be found, I don't think it's I'm driving there just to symbolically put you back in Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't think so.
It's crazy. I'm getting hung up on these little things like the saw. Like, how do you saw up? How do you make that decision after
Well,
you've impulsively killed somebody?
Also, where do you do it? I mean, you gotta
go
it
get a
in
place.
in the woods or something like that.
A
But
hotel room.
But a hotel room's gonna leave a ton of blood everywhere,
And there's going to be some record.
and you need a plug. So you need like a generator, or you need some kind of
outlet to,
adapter.
You can't do it in the woods. That's true. Yeah.
I have a theory, but I'm not sharing it.
Well, why even
Amy
tease?
Amy almost gave it away,
But I didn't.
but
They
she... so
What if
I
we
do
guess
have a
it?
theory about it.
Yeah, what if we take 2 hours to guess it?
It'd be riveting podcasting.
I feel like you could guess what it is, but you guys are on the right track. It's like you're not doing this in a regular house. Come on.
It's a house
Shouldn't
that's
do
under
it.
construction. It's a house that's being built.
I find it like I really wanted to ask the jury, like the jury who nobody would speak with us, but like I don't know how I would have asked it, because my question really would have been, did you really believe this version? Like, how did that not at least put doubt in your mind? You realize that the reasonable doubt standard means that you can be almost certain, but still have some doubt. And I don't see how they didn't have some doubt after
like a thread of doubt.
ridiculous story.
Like a
Yeah.
little bit of doubt.
I'm with you. I have the thread of doubt without a doubt.
What?
What about gambling? His gambling history. You mentioned that he was into that a little bit. How deep into that was he?
Well, it's hard to know.
The records show, let's see, they were able to get his gambling records. He gambled, I think it was, he was a blackjack player at, was it the Tropicana? I think it was the Tropicana. And so I think like the year before he died, he had gambled something in the range of
90,000?
No. That was something
okay.
different. About 30,000, 35,000.
It doesn't seem like enough to get you killed. It wasn't like a high roller,
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. I feel like people can get killed over a lot less, but
That's true.
Yeah.
But we also, hear, like for instance, we cover Brianna Maitland's case on Crawlspace, and some people think that she was killed because of a debt, and that would have been like $1,000 or something like that. But it's really hard to believe that someone's killed because the killer is owed a debt. Like, you're not going to get that money back. Why
You're not
would
going
you?
to get the money back, yeah. I don't actually think that it was related to gambling, to be honest.
So what do you think?
That was good. That it was unrelated to gambling.
Okay.
It seemed to me also that a lot of his gambling, I don't know. It seemed legit gambling. I think he, I wouldn't say whether or not he had a gambling problem or not. I think he gambled more frequently than, someone like who goes to Atlantic City once in a while for a weekend. Was he in over his head? I'm not sure. We do actually have a forensic accountant now looking at, believe it or not, one of our listeners who's a forensic accountant volunteered to look at their financial records. So we just sent her everything we have, and we're hoping that she can actually help and maybe shed a little light on this issue.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because there are some, I will say this.
There's money missing.
There's some unusual, from what we saw, banking transactions, like large amounts of money either removed or deposited that were, Melanie couldn't explain. She didn't also do any of their banking. He did the financial stuff. So there's the potential for some us to see whether or not something was going on. But I don't think it was gambling. That's all.
No.
I feel like if you're involved with someone that you owe money to for gambling, it's probably got some sort of like mob tie to it, or some sort of bookie or something, and that type of murder doesn't feel like that's what that type of person
No,
would do.
I don't think the way the body was disposed is mob.
Yeah, because usually it's like they, like Tim said, if you kill somebody who owes you money, they're not going to pay you money. So the only reason why you'd kill them is to send a message. And to send a message, you want to make sure that someone sees that they were killed in a certain way.
And also, one of the suitcases had like a 5-pound weight in it. The mob knows how to dispose of a body. They wouldn't use a 5-pound hand weight to weigh down a suitcase.
No.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're in the mob.
Clearly.
Oh, shit.
You gave that away again?
This is going to be a terrifying panel.
I know, yeah. In Jersey.
Well,
In Wildwood.
I
This is
know.
wild.
I can't wait. You were going to put the wild in Wildwood. I thought we were.
Wild in Wildwood.
I actually think that's true. I think
I'm
Amy
excited.
definitely will.
I'm
I think
excited.
we are really excited to actually host a panel on this and to be at the
We'll have
American
a lot of visuals.
Crime Fest.
We'll have a lot of visuals for
great.
people to see. We have a lot of, I guess, evidence visuals.
Yeah, we have a lot of
people.
stuff that we're happy to share.
Oh my God, you know what'd be awesome? You should bring a reciprocating saw, plug it in, and just fire it up so people can see and hear what this thing's all about.
That's actually a great idea.
I wasn't kidding.
It was my
You're
idea,
not
though.
joking,
It
but
was
we're
my
kind of
idea.
like,
I think that's great.
I wrote it down and gave it to him before, and he read it.
No, that's actually, and it reminds me of like this. So, the OJ thing, if the glove doesn't fit,
Yeah.
you must quit, right? We always say Melanie's defense should have just had her try to pick up a suitcase. And they would have been like, there's no way this chick can pick up a suitcase.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I think visuals are very powerful.
we did a test of that, on our own, and then we're also going to Atlantic City. We're
This
actually
weekend.
going this weekend. And we are going to, gamble where Bill did. No, I'm just kidding. But we are going to test a theory. Melanie had said that she moved his car, and that was probably the hardest bit of information for me. It
Still
is.
is.
It's the hardest bit of information for me to believe, if I believe her story, which I just don't know based on this information. But she said that she found his car in Atlantic City and she had moved it as a prank. And she described where she found it and how she saw it. So I'm like, is that even possible? So we're going to go and test out this theory. Could she have, based on where she said she was driving and saw it, is it even possible that she spotted his car? Could she even see a car or a license plate at the distance?
And we're going to look for that missing gun.
Yeah, we're going to look for the missing. We're going to find the gun. We're going to find the gun this weekend.
Well, you're going to have to.
We'll bring it to Wildwood.
We'll bring it to American Crime Fest.
Yep. With the reciprocating saw. So I think the reciprocating saw needs to happen, and I think you need to bring a suitcase and load it up with some weights to see if someone of her stature could pick it up. Tim's going to volunteer for that.
Well, Amy already did that.
No, we have a video on our website of me doing the experiment because I'm the same. Weight and height as Melanie.
And how did you do?
And I could not lift it. We saw it on the
But
video.
then Amy couldn't lift it. She couldn't get any air on like anything until we dropped it down to 40 pounds. And I also went ahead, even though I weigh more.
You're
But
stronger than me.
I'm like, I'm strong, let's see. And I couldn't either.
That's heavy. It is heavy.
I think I got it like an inch off the ground on 60
You wouldn't be
pounds.
able to get it over a 40-inch route.
But also I have more weight on her, so it wouldn't have been, no way. I could, and an inch off the ground. And I was like really trying. I'm like, I'm lifting this thing.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, I'll bench press it like 30 times if you want.
Will you do that on our panel?
Yes.
We'll be like, this is so relevant to the case.
Yeah.
Are you going to wear the jacket to our panel? I
I'm
like
never
it.
taking this jacket off.
Awesome.
You're going to have to take a reciprocating saw to this jacket to get it off me.
That's too good. That's too good.
But is that Joe Pesci in the background?
Yes.
Yes.
That is Joe Pesci.
What is he saying?
It says, what do you mean funny? Funny how?
Oh, okay. That's good.
Well, you two are just funny.
Funny
Yeah.
how?
Funny how?
Like a clown?
Well, thank you for joining us here on Crawlspace.
There's so many more questions.
I know it's a fascinating case, and it's going to be an incredible panel presentation at the American Crime Festival in Wildwood, New Jersey, November 9th and 10th, 2019. I can't wait. I can't wait to meet you.
Oh, and now we're getting a heart. We're getting a heart emoji and a slow clap emoji. I'm going to give you my shocked emoji.
We're super excited. That was a good face. We're
Yeah.
we're super excited for the conference. We're super excited to be a part of it. Super excited to see you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we might think twice about bringing the gun and the saw just because we want to make it into the conference center.
Yeah,
but
right.
Well, you can bring the gun and the saw if you want, but as long as you tell people your theory right here, they can know what to expect.
What to expect?
Well, let's put it this way. I theorize that Melanie did not shoot him or saw him up in her apartment.